Okay, we'll start. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are located now. My name is Marek Dąbrowski. I am fellow in CASE, Center for Social and Economic Research in Warsaw, an international private think tank, which works in the region since 1991. And today we'll present part of the output of the project which we are about to finish. The project is about increasing economic resilience of Armenia, Georgia, and Moldova. Project has been supported by the Foundation Open Society Institute, started in October 2023. So we have almost 18 months of quite intensive work behind. And practically we almost finish our research agenda. Today we present the first stage of the project, 3 country reports. In the chat window, I put links to these reports. These are case reports series, so are freely available. And main purpose of today's webinar is to present some synthesis, because each report is quite a long study. So each of the speaker representing the author team will present synthesis, the main findings of the report. The project, as I mentioned, was conducted by CASE, but in cooperation with the 3 research centers, Modex in Yerevan, Armenia, Economic Policy Research Center in Tbilisi, Georgia, and Expert Group Independent Analytical Center in Chisinau, Moldova. So, and we have among speakers as representatives of these 3 think tanks. We'll make presentation in alphabetic order of the countries. So I will first give the floor to Armine. Armine Petrosyan is a senior consultant in Modex and senior researcher in Armenian Center for Socioeconomic Studies in Yerevan. And as other speakers, she's specialized in broad areas of macroeconomic, trade, investment, public finance, and other issues relevant for this study. Please, Armine, take the floor.
Thank you for the introduction. Now I will quickly share my screen and we'll proceed with the presentation. Okay, so hello everyone. I'm not sure if you had the chance to read the report. It's on Armenia. It's quite a comprehensive report that touches on a lot of different subjects, but here I will be presenting some key developments in Armenia's economy in the last couple of years, especially after the Russian-Ukrainian war. In the last 2 decades, Armenian economy has faced several external shocks, the latest being the Russian-Ukrainian war, which through different channels affected the Armenian economy and in a positive way. After the Russian-Ukrainian war, there has been an influx of Russian citizens into Armenia, Russian companies, as well as the Russian capital. And there has been an increased growth in exports from Armenia to Russia. All these factors affected to the economic growth of Armenia. In 2022, Armenian economy registered a two-digit growth, 12.6%, which was a significant high compared to the potential of economic growth of the country, which is around 5.5%. And you can see that in 2007-2023, the average annual growth was 4.2%. So this was quite high. In 2023, the economic growth slowed down to 8.3% and further slowed down to around 6% in 2024. And it is since these effects of the Russian-Ukrainian war are continuing to subside. And it is expected that in the middle term, the economic growth of the country will return to its potential level. In recent decades, about 19% of Armenia's GDP has been driven by consumption. Armenia has a consumption-driven growth. And here you can see too that in 2022, after the influx of Russian citizens into Armenia, the consumption further grew and drove the growth. And another factor that drove the economic growth was the net exports. The red boxes here are the net exports of the country. As you can see, it narrowed in 2022 and 2023 from 2007 level. And this is reflected, this reflects the increased exports to Russia, given that after the beginning of the war, Western countries imposed economic sanctions on Russia, which limited the imports of the country. Armenia and Russia are in an economic union, Eurasian Economic Union. There is a free trade between these two countries, and the Armenian exporters here saw the opportunity to import from Western countries, USA, Europe, and to re-export these commodities to Russia, which increased significantly the exports of the country, the re-exports mainly. Armenia has been re-exported to Russia in 2022, 2023, mainly vehicles, cars for transport of people, telephone sets, other machinery. This has been the end. By the way, it has been estimated that around more than 5 percentage points of the 12.6% growth was due to the Russian-related factors. Here you can see the current account balance of Armenia. And again, the goods and services balance, which is the blue box, you can see how it narrowed. Historically, Armenia had a negative current account balance, but in 2022, it registered for the first time a surplus, and this was due to the increase in re-exports. The financial account, also negative traditionally, has increased registered a surplus due to the increased financial flows from Russian. You can see here the yellow box is the portfolio investments. This was mainly due to the portfolio investments. In 2022, 2023, after there has been sanctions on Russian banks, the Russian citizens' companies started to transferring their accounts to Armenian banks, which significantly increased the profits of the Armenian banks. And in order to manage more effectively their assets, Armenian banks started to invest in foreign securities, which increased the portfolio investments and which moved the financial account into surplus. Another thing, the dark blue box represents you can see the growth in that. It's represented by the rise in deposits from non-residents to Armenian banks, which is again the deposits of Russians who transferred their accounts to Armenian banks. Shortly about the inflation rate. So Armenian inflation prices are significantly affected by international developments. And after the Russian-Ukrainian war, there also has been hiking prices, 8.6%, which is the target inflation rate. The Central Bank of Armenia is 4%, so this is quite high. Although it must be mentioned that this is still lower than in the region and in other countries. As Armenia has, although Armenia is geographically in a challenging position, it has close borders with two of its foreign neighbors, and however, it has quite an open trade. As you can see how the trade turnover in goods and services as percentage of GDP is quite high in Armenia. And after the Russian-Ukrainian war and this increase in for exports, it even went higher to about 100%. So this reflects the open trade policy of the country. Russia is the main export destination for Armenian goods. Russia's share in Armenian exports has been growing over the last decade, and while the shares of the EU and other countries have been declining. Before 2022, Russia accounted for around 30% of Armenia's exports. You can see that in 2022, the share of Russia increased to 45%. In 2023, it was 40%. So this reflects the increasing exports, while the share of EU has been declining from 34% in 2013 up to 22% in 2021 before the Russian-Ukrainian war, and 8% in 2023. Russia is also the main supplier of goods for Armenia. The share of Russia in Armenian imports is around 30%, more than 13% in the last several years, followed by the EU countries and China. Traditionally, Armenia has been exporting copper ores and concentrates, cigarettes and brandy. So neither geographically nor in the terms of product, Armenia's export is diversified. It's very concentrated. However, you can see in 2022 and 2023, the gray box, which represents other commodities, has increased up to 62%. These other commodities are the vehicles, are the electrical machines, the machinery, the telephone sets, etc. So this is the commodities that has been started being re-exported from Armenia. The green box is the gold in semi-manufactured form. You can see how it from 8% increased to 22% in 2023, and then 50% in 2024, which also is conditioned by the Russian factors, particularly at the end of 2023. Russia limited its exports of gold and jewelry to other countries. It set tariffs for exports, which was in order to increase its use, in order to meet the demand in the local market, as well as to finance the budget deficit from the tariffs. Given that, and in this case, China, the United Arab Emirates, Hong Kong, which are the main buyers of the Russian gold, have been in a difficult position. So for them, the imports have increased. And given that the price of imports have increased, and given that Armenia and Russia are in free trade, here Armenian importers started to import the gold and then re-export it to United Arab Emirates and Hong Kong. This ban, this limitation from the side of Russia on the tariffs has been lifted in April 2024, which changed the picture. After that, the kind of started to slow down. The team that worked on the three reports helped us to calculate the trade compatibility index for Armenia and it shows that Armenia's export structure has little in common with the import structure of other countries. There have been 100 countries considered, and in the case of 94 countries, there's a very moderate compatibility. This means that also the chances for Armenia to diversify its exports is limited. In the case of imports, Armenia's import structure has significant similarities with the export structure of other countries. Another thing that we've considered is the export similarity, which shows that Armenia's export structure, both in terms of the country and products, has little similarity with the considered countries. You can see that the horizontal and vertical axis, it's low. The numbers are low. Right? The scale is low. Regarding another important factor, which is the foreign investments, Armenia's economy has been struggling with attracting foreign direct investments. As you can see, in the last decade, more than a decade, the inflow of FDI has been on decline. In 2022, the net FDI inflow in Armenia has grown 2.7 times, which was mostly due to the Russian capital inflow, again, as affected by the war in Ukraine and the appreciation of Armenian dram. In 2023, the net inflow fell, and we can say that it returns to its pre-war level, as in case of a lot of other indicators. Russia is also the main investor in Armenia's economy. Russia, Cyprus, Switzerland, and Canada provide half of Armenia's FDI, led by Russia, 30% of the net FDI stock. So regarding the portfolio investments, as I have already mentioned, the investments of the banks in foreign securities in 2022 has increased significantly, which led to the net outflow of portfolio investment increase. The net outflow of portfolio investments in 2022 increased 19 times compared to 2021. And this is this represents the investments of banks in foreign securities. This is the banks, the financial sector has been one of the main kind of winners of the inflow of Russian capital and the citizens. This is the 18 commercial banks of Armenia. And here we can see that the net profit of 18 banks of Armenia in 2022 increased 3 times compared to 2021. And in case of several banks, for example, one of the banks, there has been a 22.8 times increase in net profits compared to the previous year. And in the case of the bank that is a leader in net profit in Armenia, there has been a 4.6-fold increase. One of the main vulnerabilities of Armenia's economy is the energy sector. Armenia, the natural gas is the main contributor to the energy supply in Armenia. It's 61% of energy supply. The share of natural gas in total energy supply is 61%, which is quite high, but it has been also increasing, a 9 percentage point increase compared to 10 years before. And the main provider of natural gas is Russia. Here you can see how Armenia's energy import by country, partner country, and in 2022, around 80% of Armenia's energy imports comes from Russia, and the share of Russia has increased over the years, especially after the accession of Armenia into the Eurasian Economic Union in 2015. So again, in the report, we included a lot of recommendations. As you can see, Armenia's economy is quite vulnerable based on some external shocks, and especially in the situation in Russia, exports, imports in a lot of different dimensions. There is a very close connection to Russia. We have recommended, there are several things that we think that the country can do in order to a little bit improve its situation. One of the things is to develop a comprehensive export strategy, especially focusing on the high-tech and export-oriented services. One of the vulnerabilities of the economy is the energy sector. We think that we recommend that accelerating the solar energy development and grid upgrades can help to reduce the dependency on gas. And in this sense, it is very important for the country to strengthen its regional energy integration with Georgia and Iran, particularly by upgrading cross-border infrastructure, which is a very poor state. Armenia has a SEPA agreement with the EU, and it is recommended to assess this implementation and to identify new initiatives, opportunities in the frame of the SEPA for Armenia to support its strategic interests. As we have seen, Armenia is an Eurasian Economic Union member, which restricts its opportunity to have a free trade agreements and other agreements with other countries regarding trade. And it can help if the country pursues special status within the EU or Eurasian Economic Union, which will allow to the country to independently trade, to have independent trade agreements, and to expand its global trade reach. Also, Armenia can leverage the WTO rules and bilateral negotiations to diversify trade, which is rarely done. Another thing is that Armenia has an opportunity to strengthen its trade ties with Middle Eastern countries, which can help to diversify its trade. So there has been a lot of this kind of recommendations we have included here. I tried to squeeze it into 15 minutes. So this is all on the part of Armenia. I will be happy to answer your questions at the end of the webinar if you have any. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Armine. Before I introduce the next speaker, a few housekeeping information. You may now on the chat window put the question to Armine, but also to other authors of the country reports. We, as I mentioned before, we presented links to these 3 country reports, and answering one of the questions which is already in chat, we'll also upload in our website, case website, all presentation after the webinar. Now I want to introduce the second speaker, who is Gigi Ormotsadze, research fellow in the Economic Policy Research Center in Tbilisi, Georgia, who will present country reports on Georgia. Please, Gigi, you have 15 minutes.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, let me just quickly share the screen. Okay, I hope you all can see. Again, listening to Armine, it seems like the experience for Georgia and Armenia is quite similar in a sense of how the war particularly impacted these 2 economies. Before I go into the slides, I wanted to make a remark that I do consider personally that the biggest threat for Georgian economy, or biggest vulnerability of Georgian economy, is the political tension, what is happening right now, and I will try to abstain from it because the whole report was about the impact of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and I will try to follow the time period of 2020-2023 rather than to the most recent developments. Okay, so first I will address the growth rate, and as the case was similar as the case of Armenia, Georgia economy also benefited in the sense of due to the war, and it has grown significantly compared to the expected growth rate. And the growth rate after that, like following 23-24, with the preliminary data of the National Statistics Office of Georgia, it is outperforming the expected growth rate. I think one of the key issues which have been hindering Georgian economy over the years has been the inflation and the exchange rate of the lari, of the Georgian currency. However, again, with inflation as well, the post-COVID recovery, since the post-COVID period, the recovery has been positive, and it has been maintained under the targeted 3% below it. On the monetary policy rate has been by the National Bank of Georgia. The monetary policy rate was lowered to 8% in 2024, and it has been kept there. But also it should be noted that National Bank has been quite active in maintaining the exchange rate, and especially it was visible prior to the elections, as the amount of the foreign reserves sold during that period has been quite high compared to the general trend. In a sense of the exchange rate, Georgian lari has been fluctuating throughout the 2022-2023, but has been more or less stable in the later months. However, on the next slide, on the international trade, the trade has been also an integral part of the Georgian economy, as the Georgian economy is quite open and reliant on the external imports. As the chart shows, the trade of goods and services remain over the 100% of GDP. However, Georgian economy has been struggling with the negative, the trade of goods has been struggling with the negative trade balance, which has been narrowing as in the recent years, very similar to what Armine demonstrated in her slides, which has been fueled by two conditions: the growing size of the GDP, and also the shrinking, slightly declining size of the trade deficit. However, on the service export side, the Georgian economy has definitely been boosted due to the war-driven tourism and war-driven inflow of people and capital. To look at the geographical structure of the Georgian economy, one of the key points to observe is that starting from 2020, there is a decline in the share of EU exports, and I think it has been the historic low at the moment as the share of GDP. But an interesting observation is that the same is happening with the rest of the conventional trade partners. So we can see the same happening with Turkey, with Russia, and I think it's mostly explained by the emerging of new markets where Georgia started to export, and that we see the increasing re-export to the Central Asian markets. However, the longevity of this structure is quite questionable. On the import side, import has been quite stalled, and it has been there has been no significant changes on that side. Regarding the remittances, which are also a quite important part of the Georgian economy, it has been growing since 2007 and has reached its peak in 2022, where the share of remittances was 16%. The share of GDP was 16%. However, we see that in the upcoming year, we see a slight decline. The trend, which probably is dictated by the decline of the remittances coming from the Russia, as both the people, the Georgians who resided in Russia and the Russians have fled to a certain extent. So there is not much remittances coming from Russia. And on the side of the geographical distribution, due to this development, EU has retaken the more important role, as currently EU serves as the source of the most remittances coming to Georgia. However, if you look at the previous trend, it has always been like the competition between the Russian and EU as a source of core remittances. Another aspect would be the foreign direct investment, and to be fair, the inflow of foreign direct FDI has not reached to the scale which was at 2007, but it still managed to rebound from 2020 when the latest decline in FDI happened. Well, it was not particularly the case of Georgia, but the global issue, right? On the other side, we see that FDI stock has been growing over the years. It's larger compared to the regional countries, and the geographical distribution of the FDI stock, FDI flows. Where does it come from? It comes from mostly EU, Azerbaijan, and UK. These three are the top sources of investment, top largest investors in Georgia. And interestingly, the financial and insurance activities as a sector has overtaken the transport and storage as the most attractive sector for investment in 2023, which was the first time that this industry has become the most appealing or most attractive for the investors. And lastly, I'll talk about the energy sector, which is one of the biggest vulnerabilities or Achilles heel of the Georgian economy. Georgia is heavily reliant on the imported energy goods. The domestic production has been stalled over the years, and the demand has been mostly met by the imports. Large chunk of the energy supply is coming from the natural gas, while the role of Russia in the import of natural gas is continuing to grow in the recent years. On the second chart, we can also see that in the total energy imports, the role of Russia is growing, while it was quite insignificant prior to 2014, and since then it started to grow and regain the leverage over the Georgian energy sector. The important part is to at least keep that in mind, because we have experienced how that same sector has been used as a leverage for political gains by the Russian government in previous years, in previous decade, I guess. So to give the brief summary, the economic growth driven by inflow from Russia and Ukraine is unsustainable and poses a structural weakness, which should be taken into account by the government and in the process of long-term planning. The rapid outflow of war-driven accounts from commercial banks could be a risk, as but to be fair, in that side, there has been some certain regulations presented by NBG and commercial banks to counter the rapid outflow. The surge in re-export to Central Asian countries appears unsustainable in the long run, which I already mentioned, and increasing energy imports for Russia present both economic and political challenge. And lastly, I guess I'll end up with the same as with what I started, that the political instability and the shifting geopolitical dynamics remains as the key challenge for Georgia's economy at the moment, not particularly like certain economic sector, but I think the policy making by itself. Yeah, I think I'll finish with that, and I'll be happy to answer to the questions on the details.
Thank you very much, Gigi. I would like to repeat my appeal to put question in the chat. There are already a few questions addressed to Armine. So in the meantime, before the next presentation ends, please look at this question. I will then read them to and ask you to answer this question. Now I would like to give floor to third speaker, Ecaterina Rusu, who is Program Director for Trade Policies and Deep Comprehensive Free Trade Area in the expert group in Chisinau. Please, Ecaterina, 15 minutes.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. So continuing with Moldova, Moldova has a small and open economy, and it's very exposed to external shocks. And unfortunately, the frequency of these shocks has increased with very significant macroeconomic impact. It was COVID in 2020 that overlapped with a severe drought, leading to a recession. So the GDP diminished by 7%. Then it followed by energetic crisis that led to huge inflation of 35%. And of course, the Russian aggression in Ukraine that created a security crisis and diminished the attractiveness of Moldova as an investment destination and created some trade distortions. So based on the comprehensive analysis we performed, we developed a vulnerability ranking with the top main vulnerabilities Moldova faces nowadays. So the first one in our ranking is of course linked with the energy sector. Moldova has limited energy resources and can meet and cover the only 15% of the national demand. So in this regard, we rely integrally on imports of oil and gas. When in 2021, the previous agreement with Gazprom ended and the negotiation of the new agreement were very tough and led to the linking of prices to the international prices on the market, which led to increasing tariffs by 5 times. However, that wasn't whole. Russia tried to blackmail and diminished the quantity of supply, leading to serious shortages. And this was the time when the government decided that the problem of energy security should be somehow addressed, even it was kept on hold for many years since independence. And through a state-owned company, we created the necessary mechanism to trade the energy on international, on European market. So this was a significant improvement in diversifying energy supply. Also, we initiated some state programs that target energy efficiency. However, to address these vulnerabilities, it is necessary an integrated approach that target investment in infrastructure. The infrastructure is as outdated, also the plant-based infrastructure, network distribution infrastructure, and this needs significant investment. And this measure should be correlated with state programs that target investment in renewables and in energy efficiency. Okay. Another important problem for our country is the fact that we assist at the erosion of the growth potential. We are now on a descending trend. So if in 2004-2013 the GDP growth was on average 5% per year, in the next decade it halved and it was 2% per year, and in 2024 we assisted a stagnation. The GDP growth was 0.1%. This situation tells us the fact that there is a lack of private and public investment. Also, this erosion of growth potential is caused by the demographic problems, high immigration, and of course, low capacity of the government to provide and ensure efficient state programs that would help to stimulate the growth potential. What's the recommendation? We need a new approach to the growth, and this approach should target supporting companies that work in high value-added sectors that will ensure innovation, technology transfer, and this could help to impulsionate the economic growth. And what's important here, a huge chance for Moldova is the economic growth plan that was approved by the European Commission, which envisages a financial envelope of 1.9 billion euro. And here it's very important to highlight that it's very the government should select very strategically what dimension to support. The investment should be channeled to key infrastructure products, to key state programs that will support businesses. We have, in the last year, adopted a series of strategic documents, economic development strategy, industrialization strategies, but their impact will depend on government commitment to implement these assumed objectives. The budget deficit, it is a key problem. We have limited revenues, which translates in high deficits, which exceed the threshold we have adopted. So according to the public finance law, the deficit reported to the GDP should not exceed 2.5%. However, in the last years, it was 5 or even 5 and 4%. The government is committed to improve the fiscal and budgetary discipline. However, it's very difficult to this fiscal consolidation. It's very difficult to be implemented, and also we have a huge informal economy sector, which is estimated at 37% of GDP. So it's necessary very efficient measure to combat informal economy in order to improve their budget revenues. Like in other countries, we have a negative current account. The deficit is around 12% of GDP, and the deficit is mainly caused by the trading goods, which is permanently on a negative. So we have a negative balance between export and imports. The positive side is that Moldova is a net exporter of services, and we experience a consolidation of export of services. And just like a fun fact, the export of IT services has exceeded the export of wine that was considered a traditional product that was exported by our country. What are the solutions? Of course, we need more support programs for export-oriented companies, but what is a key is also to invest in quality infrastructure in order to help companies to meet sanitary and phytosanitary norms. For example, we have a very low number of products of animal origin designated for consumption that are allowed to be exported to European markets. So the state programs also should be focused on supporting companies to adapt their production facility to the European Union requirements. While the FDI inflows and the FDI stock increased, their share in GDP slowly decreasing, which means that Moldova continues to lose competition for FDIs in report to other Central European countries. This has, of course, negative implication for the economic development, and due to the permanent political instability, now it's the security crisis, the bureaucracy, the unfavorable business climate. These all are the factors that affect our attractiveness as a country. So for the next period, of course, we should work more on economic diplomacy dimension in order to promote Moldova as a country brand, the destination for investment, but also to enforce the competition framework in order to ensure fair competition for all companies. Of course, the Russian aggression in Ukraine has led to some trade disruption. Thankfully, Moldova is well integrated into the European market. Nowadays, around 70% of exports are designated to European market. However, trade diversification is a point where we should work more. For example, while previously, Russia was the only country, the country where Moldovans exported the most, around 1/3. Now it's Romania. So 50% of the exports designated to European market actually goes to Romania. So we should work more on trade diversification, but also to increase investment in logistic infrastructure, to improve transportation networks that will diminish the trade cost, and also to improve border infrastructure to ease cross-border trade. Like other countries, we see and experience a high dependence on remittances, but on contrary, the remittances in Moldova decrease, while in 2007, their share in GDP was 34%. In 2023, they decreased to 12%. While the effect on exchange rate it's not high because Moldova has sufficient reserve assets, the decreasing on remittances affects consumption, but also can pose a risk to the balance of payments, given their volatility. And we should know, and in order to, on long term, to address this problem, we should focus more on swap, not to remittances, not rely on remittances, but also rely on export, to invest in export-oriented companies, and to create attractive working conditions at home. Due to the various shocks Moldova experienced, the government acted like a ferryman. It has to offer compensation for the bills for the households, for the farms. So as a result, it had to borrow the resources. The external partners helped and was ready to provide financial assistance at concessional terms. So as a result, the public debt increased, mostly as a result of the increase in the external debt. Another problem we see here is while the resources have been attracted, they were more channeled to current expenditures like offering different subsidies, compensation for the bills, rather than investing in infrastructure. So this on the long term can have a negative impact, because we consider that external debt and internal debt, no matter of their origin, should be more channeled on expenditures that targets development. The budget in our country is constructed in a way that relies very much on indirect taxes, like VAT tax, rather than corporate tax, let's say, specific for other more developed countries. So in times of crisis, of course, because consumption decrease, these indirect taxes decrease, and of course it affects the budget revenues. So budget revenues remain very volatile due to this particularity, and expose the country to this vulnerability. What will be the solution is to combat the informal economy that I mentioned. It is very high, but also is to facilitate the transition to a new growth model that it's much more based on value added and high productivity. And inflation, I think it is a key problem we face at the moment. In 2021 and 2022, inflation increased significantly. It achieved or reached 34% compared to the target of the National Bank, that is 5%. And one peculiarity of inflation is that it is caused by the external factors. Mostly we speak here about energy resources and consumer imports. While we have a very independent central bank that is well capacitated and have the necessary monetary instruments to act, its reaction, it applies instrument more as on the reaction way than on anticipated or forecast inflation. So this should be kept in mind for the next potential inflationary risks. Inflationary risk is also very it's very acute problem, considering that around 1/3 of population is below the absolute poverty line. So in case when the prices, especially for food and beverages, increase, this immediately affects the well-being of the population, and also has a significant social implication. What will be our recommendation, of course, is to keep the independence and strengthen the independence of the central bank, and streamline the monetary policy transmission channels. Thank you. Open to the questions.
Thank you very much, Ecaterina. Now we open discussion. I received in chat, there is a few questions. Let's start from the one addressed to Armine. Lev Freikman asked, I would be interested in your estimates regarding the decomposition of economic growth in Armenia in 2022. You mentioned that 5 percentage points out of 12 could be attributed to Russian impact. Could you be more specific? What are the main channels of Russian influences and their individual contribution? And what about the remaining 7%? From where did residual growth come from?
Sure. So Armenia, the main channels through which it affected the economic growth. One of the main channels is the influx of Russian citizens. After the beginning of the war, there has been a significant number of Russian citizens who moved from Russia to Armenia. This contributed to the demand side growth in Armenia's economy. It increased the consumption. So these people started consuming more, which contributed to, this is one of the channels which contributed to the economic growth. As I have said, the Armenian economic growth is mostly consumption driven. This is one of the channels. Another channel is the net exports, the re-exports from the country. Given that there had been economic sanctions on Russia, Russia was not able to import from Western countries. And given that Armenia and Russia have free trade, they are in an economic union, Eurasian Economic Union, there had been no restrictions on the part of Armenia. This is how the Armenian exporters started importing different products, as I have sent, for example, cars, and re-exported it to Russia. This is how the export grows. This is how exports to Russia grows, and this is in the net exports. This is one of the channels through which it affected. The taxes collected from the exports, imports, etc. The imports also have this contributed to the growth, and those are some of the channels. There has been a growth of increase of Russian capital into Armenia's economy, and again, this was after the sanctions on the rest of the growth is the potential growth of Armenia. So the Armenian economy has the potential to grow. It's not all the conditioned by the external factors. So half of that was Armenia's potential growth, and the other half was driven by the Russian factor. And as we can see now that this affects Russian citizens are now starting to leave the country, etc., etc., as the exports to Russia now slows down and the exports are slowing down. So now we see that the growth is coming back to its potential level. It's a little bit higher still, but in medium term it will return to its potential level.
Thanks. Is another question from Lev Frankman. What was the contribution to growth of export and services, especially in information communication technologies and tourism?
Yeah, sure. The exports of services have also grown, not that significantly, and it didn't have that much effect at the merchandise exports, but it has also grown. The tourism has increased, and the IT services, the exports of IT services. Also, given that some IT specialists from Russia have moved to Armenia and companies have moved to Armenia, this also increased, but since the role of the exports of goods, etc., has been more significant, that's what we put more significance on that. But in the report, we also talk about the increase in services, which also has been significant, affected by the war.
Okay, thanks. And one more question from Roman Mogilewski. Yeah. Armenia experienced some other shocks in 2020s, including the COVID-19 pandemic and the Nagorno-Karabakh Artsakh war. The latter caused a major influx of refugees and other impacts on the economy of Armenia. Could you separate the effect of these shocks from the impact of the Russia war in Ukraine? I think quite complicated questions.
Yeah. It's when you, for example, when you look at the exports, imports, etc., the effects of the Russian factor is very vivid. In terms of the influx of forcibly displaced population from Nagorno-Karabakh, this has affected Armenia's budget expenses, given that the social expenditures have increased. And now one of the main issues, one of the main challenges is to help this population with the apartments and finding the place to live, with the housing issue. Housing issue is one of the main components of, so this is how it affected the Armenian economy in terms of the expenses. But there is no such estimation for now, like how much of that growth has been or decline has been affected by separate shocks?
Thank you very much. Now I move to the question, also Roman Mogilewski question, which in fact was already answered by Gigi, but I will read because it may be interesting for the entire audience. In case of Georgia, the data on remittances from Russia should be interpreted with some caution. A large part of these remittances may need to be attributed not to the earnings of Georgian labor migrants in Russia, but to Russian migrants' capital movement first to Georgia and then elsewhere. Gigi?
Yes, it's absolutely true, I think. Yeah, it's absolutely true. I just mentioned about the migrants coming back because they, first of all, Georgian migrants in Russia do not particularly represent a similar type of migrants and they would be in European Union. The Georgian migrants are the people who actually do hold Russian citizenship and are like considered to be Russians. Also, what the comment said, it's absolutely true and very similar to the case of Armenia, that the inflow of Russian citizens, inflow of Russian businesses, and we had this, the spike in the registry of the number of new ventures or businesses in the country. So all of that have affected the economy, and all of that can also be the reason why the inflow of remittances has reduced in a sense.
Okay, thanks. Now is the question from Moshe Janowski, which is, I understand, addressed to all speakers. Small countries plagued by external shocks naturally need to be champions in business climate, quality, and economic freedom. The reports have not covered this issue. I believe a local business climate advantage could be a significant component of economic resilience in all three countries. I would be very grateful to any reporter for information about efforts to cut regulatory burden and protect private property, legislation, court verdict, etc. Who of you would like to answer? Preferably all three, but because each country has its own specific, but who would go the first?
I can go first if no one wants to. Well, first of all, thank you for the comment. And secondly, yeah, absolutely true. And Georgia has been always, like, Georgian policymakers have been always been very vocal about like ease of doing business in Georgia and being ranked high on the ranking and so on and so forth. But to be fair, the current business environment, the climate does not particularly, from my stance, from my point of view, does not particularly provide the security, in a sense, which is dictated by the ongoing existing political tensions and the growing mistrust to the courts. And I would go from there to directly to the business environment and the role of the business within this, the creation of this like climate, because they in recent years and in recent months, more precisely, business has been very vocal on that topic. And while it's not been unanimous, and some businesses are yet providing support for the incumbent government, we see that there is a set of businesses and set of ventures which are complaining about the existing landscape. So yeah, I think that at least partly covers the question.
Thanks, Gigi. Ecaterina, do you want to tell us anything about business climate and the regulation in Moldova?
Yeah, sure. Well, I mentioned that The local climate is important, especially to ensure fair competition on the market. So this will attract more investments. Moldova in the recent years made an important step towards digitalization of public services, improved the interaction even of foreign investors with the state, and also improved in the ranking of private property, which is very important to ensure the security of investments. However, what I see the problem is, of course, the security crisis, the war in Ukraine, Moldova being very exposed due to geographical proximity. So in this context, maybe a state guarantee for investors could act as a catalyst for attracting more FDI, giving investors the guarantee that their resources will be safe.
I think in the case of Armenia too, I will need to repeat, in the last couple of years, especially, there have been, after the 2018, there has been, the government has been very vocal about the fighting corruption, making less bureaucratic the regulations, etc., improving on regulations, etc. But I think that in the case of Armenia, the business climate, one of the things that the most important thing that is affecting the business climate is the geopolitical tension in the region. Armenia is in a very kind of complicated region, and this is one of the things that is currently affecting the business climate, I think, most of all. And there are a lot of different rankings on economic freedom, etc., that show the improvements on the regulation side. But this is one of the most important issues. And also, I've seen a question on the potential growth of Armenia, which is 5.5%. It's not estimated by us, it's estimated by the government.
Thank you. Now we have question, Alexander Gevorkian question on Moldova. Moldova has a robust diaspora engagement program versus other small economies. Do you see any positive impact on the economy so far? For example, via PARE, etc. A while back, had a chance to work on the related UNECE report.
Yeah, very impressed, about this program. Yes, it is a program called PARE 1+1. So the diaspora invests a sum of money, and the state also offer a grant in the same amount. The problem is that the scale of this program is not very high. So it supports the family business, the small business in some communities. But so far, this program should be somehow scaled up in order to bring more impact. There are other programs that are more financial consistent. I mean, they offer huge grants from the state rather than this PARE 1+1. Therefore, so far, this program, it's okay. It's good to attract remittances and channel them to the business, but I think it's not enough. It should be a little bit scaled up.
Thank you, Ecaterina. And now is another Alexander Gevorkian question regarding Armenia on Nagorno-Karabakh Artsakh refugees. Perhaps it is also important to consider that has also been an increase in the working age labor force in Armenia. Can you comment on this, Armine?
Yes, there has
whether
been an
it's permanent or transitory factor, or how you see it.
There have been an estimation that this is going to affect positively, actually, the employment rate. But when we have done the study, the data on this wasn't out yet, so we didn't have the full picture of that. And this is only 1 year after the war in Nagorno-Karabakh. So we haven't seen a lot of changes in this regards yet, but the Central Bank of Armenia has some estimations at how exactly this is going to, in the middle term and in the long term, affect the labor market and the employment in Armenia.
Thank you. These are all questions which I received on chat. Now the question for broader audience: does anybody want to make some comments or to put another question, or members of the case research team perhaps want to say something or comment something? I don't see willing to do so. So perhaps for all three speakers, last possibility to make some concluding comments, starting in reverse order. Okay, it's Lev Reitman wanting to say something. Marta, can we activate Lev? Or
yes, please. You can ask. I guess. We are now muted, but
unmute Lev if you want
yeah.
to speak.
Okay. Or you perhaps you may ask a question in the chat if it's convenient for you. Because I have already unmuted Lev. Yeah, I have already done it. So that
You need to allow unmute Marta.
yes, I have already done it, but I think he doesn't answer.
Okay.
At all.
Okay, Lev will write the question. So in the meantime, a moment. Do you have some, Ecaterina, to make some? We have another willing to speak, Richard Pomfret. Can we activate?
Yeah, I guess we have some problems here, but
okay, so Richard, the same. Can you write your comment or in chat? Because I don't know what is the problem here.
okay.
Lev Reitman is writing that he must be unblocked. I think the problem is not with muting, but with blocking. Okay, in the meantime, let's, there is question of Richard Pomfret on Armenia. Is there prospects of cooperation with Azerbaijan on the Zangezur corridor or other issue? Armine.
Currently, Armenian government has announced in the last year that its project is called Crossroads of Peace, and the government is eager to cooperate with neighbors in order to open the roads, the transit. What is the prospects? It's very difficult to say right now on the part of Azerbaijan. Now the negotiations are ongoing, and unfortunately there are a lot of questions there. It's unclear. I can't say anything definitely on that, but the negotiations are ongoing on both parts.
Okay, any other comments do we have? Sorry for these technical problems.
I think now it's supposed to be okay. Please try it.
Yes, it's working now on my side. Can I?
Okay.
Do you read me?
Yes,
Yes.
I hear you.
Okay, Marek, nice to see you. My question is about comparison between Moldova and Armenia with respect to agricultural export and food and agricultural products. If I understood it correctly, in case of Moldova, there is a lot of progress with integration with the EU market, but still there are major issues with export of agric and food processing. So what is the blocking against more active utilization of opportunities in agriculture? Because agriculture, as we all know, is pretty critical for Moldova. Markets are next door, still not much progress despite 40 or 25 years of gradual integration with the EU. In contrast, as I understand, there was an explosion in agricultural and food product to Russia from Armenia after Armenia joined this infamous Eurasian Union. What are lessons from these two different paths of integration? Any speculations in this respect?
Thank you. Who wants to go first?
Yeah, okay. In case of Moldova, what I want to say that agriculture is an important sector and agri-food products represent an important category for export in the European Union. The problem here is twofold. First of all, we mostly rely on export of raw materials rather than on processed food, which brings low value added and low income. This is because it were low investment in companies, that companies were not focused on processing facilities. So it was easy just to export raw materials, and now it's clear that this model is not sustainable anymore. The second problem is the fact that while the export of agricultural products of vegetal nature, everything it's liberalized and it's easy to export. In the case of food products of animal origin, a lot of farmers do not comply with the norms, with the sanitary norms imposed by the European Union. So in this way, there is still work to do on quality infrastructure and ensuring the necessary laboratories.
Armine, do you want to say?
Yeah, in case of Armenia, the main market for processed fruits and agricultural products was Russia. And after the accession of the Eurasian Economic Union, this has increased the market. It's easier to access in terms of the tariffs, etc. One of the things with the EU, one of the problems of the exports with the EU is this quality issues and other regulations which make it a little bit difficult and costly for Armenian exporters to adjust their products to the EU market, while the Russian market is more accessible. And it's more easier for Armenian producer exporters to go into the Russian market. This is the main thing.
Thank you very much. Richard, do you want to tell something apart from your written question? Because I think
No,
you
I
are
just forgot
unblocked.
to lower my hand.
Okay, so please, if you want to say something or not already. Okay, thank you. So I think that we are about to the final stage of the webinar. My question is whether you want to make any final comments, Gigi?
Not really. I think
Okay.
Richard is still.
Ecaterina, do you want to say something? Summary?
Just in conclusion, to highlight that Moldova is exposed to a series of vulnerabilities that all in one lead to the erosion of the growth potential. The growth of GDP is very low. We have a widening trade deficit in goods. The remittances are on decreasing trend. Also, we see a huge losing competition on attracting FDI. So all this calls for new development model of the country that will focus on competitiveness, on companies that generate value added and bring innovation.
Thank you, Armine.
No, I don't think that I have much to say. I think that what Armenia's economy has is how vulnerable shocks and one external shock can lead to such growth in the economy. It also says that while that subsides, it will have a huge negative impact on the economy too, which is a very negative thing. And I think that here we have a lot of things to do regarding the public policies, etc., in order to diversify our economy, to make it more resilient. There is a big room to grow and a lot of vulnerabilities. I think that we have tried to touch all these topics in the report in more detail. And if you have any more questions, I think that you may find them there in the report. Thank you.
Okay, there is one more chat comment of Alexander Gevorkian, who suggests to use some recent statistical data. Please note this one. I think that we are coming to the end of this very interesting webinar. I would like to thank all three speakers for very substantial, well elaborated, in a well-disciplined presentation, and also the readiness to answer various questions which we receive from audience. I would also like to use this opportunity to thank all country teams, because in each case there were several authors of the country reports for the work which has been done on these countries and their contribution to the project. As I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, the project is about to be concluded in just a few weeks' time. But at the end of this week will be published a regional report which covers 7 Eastern European countries in comparative perspective. So 3 which were presented today, plus Ukraine, Russia, Belarus, and Azerbaijan. So please observe case website. It will be published on case website in case report series. Practice, this report is already done. It's now the final editorial steps conducted. I also want to use this opportunity to thank also member of case research team, Jan Hagemeyer, Christopher Hartwell, Olga Popova, and Vladimir Otraszczenko, who supervise work of the country teams and also who are the authors of the co-authors of the regional report which I mentioned. All audience which was above 30 PIP today, well above 30 participants. I would appreciate active participation and invite to the next events organized by Case Center for Social Economic Research. Perhaps we will also organize some other presentations related to this project, but this is the subject of discussion. Thank you very much. Again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
So much. Bye.